Okay. So, in the absence of any member presently being here, I have some additional questions, and we'll see if anybody else joins us. Ambassador O'Brien, how are, first of all, outside of Europe, only a handful of countries have been willing to impose sanctions. How are we working to broaden the coalition of sanctioned partners working to hold Russia accountable? And beyond the price cap, what are we doing to prevent countries like China and India from taking advantage of the chance to trade and help Russia make up for its losses?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first step is to ensure that the sanctions are complied with by anyone who touches our system. And I think this was the heart of the exchange between the Assistant Secretary and Senator Van Hollen. We see the private sectors around the globe being very interested in continuing their access. So the private sectors in China, India, and elsewhere are very well attuned and aware of what they can and cannot do. And even companies with substantial state ownership are aware and attuned to what we expect of them. So the coalition, in fact, the sort of a coalition and those running alongside it, in fact, is pretty robust. Where there are specific problems, we raise them with those governments. We take appropriate action, sometimes in law enforcement channels or other channels, and sometimes through sanctions activity. More generally, broadening the coalition means...
But excuse me, China and India are both actively engaged in making a variety of purchases from Russia.
Yes.
I haven't seen any actions against either one of them.
Well, the actions that we've seen are ones that are allowed under the sanctions, which I realize may be your point, but it's not that we're negligent in enforcing the sanctions. It's that much of the trade is in the kinds of commodities that are important. And this goes also to keeping the coalition strong, because there are many lower and middle income countries around the world that need the global markets to function, and that includes allowing Russian and Ukrainian products to reach them. So trade, say, to Turkey, Turkey re-exports 70% of any wheat and grain it gets from Russia and Ukraine to Africa. So though that number looks like a lot of trade, it actually is a part of keeping the global coalition in a place where we're able to sustain the support for Ukraine.
Well, China's certainly not a lower middle income country, right?
I think technically, well, I think China's role in this is very interesting, because I think the Chinese have made clear, including publicly, that the war strikes them as, say, not going well. I mean, we've all seen the exchange last week or 2 weeks ago. And I think we will continue to work with the Chinese to ensure that they understand where our sanctions operate, and that has an effect on the way that they engage with Russia.
Yeah, I just have I'm a big supporter of the U.S.-India relationship, but India is now part of the Quad. You're going to be part of the Quad, you're going to act as part of it. It's not only vis-a-vis China, but beyond that. Kazakhstan is considered by many to be Russia's closest ally, only second to Belarus, yet recent reports regarding the Kazakh government's decision to crack down on loopholes allowing Russia and Belarusian truckers to transport EU cargo across Russia to Kazakhstan suggest that this relationship may be fizzling. What steps are we taking to seize upon any opportunities to put further pressure on Russia as a result of divisions possibly deepening between them and their Central Asian partners?
Yeah, it's a great point. So the Central Asian countries have economies that are largely entwined with Russia. Kazakhstan's access to European markets was largely by way of Russia, both its oil pipeline and its agricultural exports. Many of the countries have substantial remittances coming from emigres who work in Russia and send the money home. So we're working with them to provide them with options, whether that's physical alternative routes and other ways to develop investment and cash. Over the last week, Secretary Blinken met with the 5 foreign ministers of the Central Asian countries. We've provided them with guidance on how to implement our sanctions. We've followed up with specific concerns. We will be having further conversations with them on precisely what they can do. And I think we'll see all of those countries that will be happy to have alternatives to the relationship that they had with Moscow before. And so we'll continue to work in that vein.